What message did the Mavericks send in Game 1?
That they were just really prepared with a terrific game plan. They really challenged the Wolves to basically try to shoot themselves to victory. It was kind of a trap. They packed the paint with players there that they would block Ant's ability to see the rim and try to get to the rim. This is one of the best drivers of the basketball in the league. He took 4 shots, guys, 4 shots inside the paint the whole game. And then they had a very interesting game plan on offense. Jason Kidd noticed in that last series against the Thunder, he thought Luka was wearing down at the end of some of those games. He's still battling that knee injury. So he wanted to take the load off of Luka early in the game. He gave him a little bit extra rest. He's going to try to keep him under 40 minutes. I laughed when he said it, and sure enough, last night he didn't. But that also meant Kyrie would be sort of the trigger man early in the game. Now, it goes along very nicely with him going after Ant Edwards. That was a nice side benefit of being able to attack. But I do think that the combination of that defensive strategy, which the Wolves fell into, they took 49 threes, the most threes they've taken in any game this season, 9 more threes than any game in the playoffs so far. Those 3 stopped going in the second half. They were not getting those inside shots. And then on the other end, in the fourth quarter, guess who was a little bit more rested? Luka. Terrific fourth, 15 points. The Mavericks game plan worked beautifully last night. And that's why they're ahead 1-0.
One thing that I love in this postseason is the ability to have different stories. And one thing that we found with Kyrie is that moment of allow me to reintroduce myself, because he is reinventing himself on the fly in the games that he said, this is the hardest period in my career, because this is the first time, Malika, I've seen Kyrie truly defer over the course of a season to another superstar talent, and that is Luka Doncic, which amounted in a role reversal. Typically, Luka, as Brian said, leads in the first quarter, sort of carries the team over the course. He's an NBA's leading scorer, right? But Kyrie saw an opportunity based off of his experience. Those 2 guys, those top 2 players, amongst the top players in this matchup, they're the ones with the experience. They're the only ones who have been to a conference finals. And we all know that Kyrie has a ring and has plenty of history shooting clutch shots for multitudes of teams. But when I look at this matchup, I love how Kyrie has reinvented himself and also how he took the opportunity to go downhill and have that sense of urgency. He had 24 first half points. 18 of those came in the paint. He's going up against the best defense in the NBA with 7-footers and Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, and Karl-Anthony Towns, and it's no problem. To me, this is wild. The same way we talk about Jalen Brunson being undersized, Kyrie is undersized, and he's going up against the trees, the Stifle Tower. There's so many nicknames. And so to me, that was impressive as he's been able to reinvent himself with different roles game by game. And then on top of that, Luka, I mean, come on. No one controls the game better than that guy. Right. No one's going to make him play faster. No one's going to make him play slower. No one's going to move him off of his spots. You can have the athleticism, and he's still able to hit you with that shoulder and get to that step back. The camaraderie amongst the Dallas Maverick backcourt truly was impressive.
If I'm Dallas, I'm thrilled. Minnesota made 18 threes. They only had 10 turnovers, and they still found a way to gut out the wind. If I'm Dallas, I'm feeling like, okay, we took back control of home court advantage in this series, and we now see the game plan here a little bit. But Minnesota lost game 1, right, for the first time this postseason, which, if you look historically, it's been a little bit of a problem. The Wolves are 1-10 all-time in series when they dropped that first game. So let's take a listen to Anthony Edwards on the energy level he had in his first conference finals game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, y'all can see it was a step behind everybody, especially myself. Kyrie got a transition layup from, I think we scored, and he just outran me. I was just exhausted, man. So, yeah, for sure. But we'll be all right.
It's kind of rare that you hear a player admit that he was exhausted, right? But we could see it on the floor. When you look at Ant, right, he was settling in a lot. He wasn't driving to the rim. He didn't make a layup or a dunk all game long, which is so uncharacteristic for him. Brian, what's the level of concern you have for Ant and the Timberwolves here?
Well, I'll tell you, Chris Finch has some concern because today he put them through what sounds like a very brutal film session. Not just so much on the X and O's, but also because he felt that their focus wasn't there, their attention to detail, their aggression. Like, it was just not what he expected in a Western Conference Finals game with so much on the line. I think he really let him have it. And so we'll see if that works. But I will say this. I think what was happening to the Wolves is correctable, which is one of the reasons why I think Finch went into that film session today with such, venom, trying to get him out of that.
Right.
if Ant Edwards is right, and if your offense is operating correctly, you don't let the Mavericks set up and put 3 guys in front of you in the paint. They weren't ready for that. They didn't react well to that. They'll be able to improve on that for sure. And, defensively, they're going to have to maybe take a look at what they do with Kyrie and prepare for Kyrie to be more aggressive attacking the paint, and maybe even think about how they rotate their defenders if truly Luka is going to save energy for the end of the game. So, look, this was still a 1 or 2 possession game right down to the end. Minnesota didn't play well. I don't think it's a super concern other than the fact that they have lost home court advantage.
Wendy, you said one word that was the most important. It was the paint. And I think a lot of people focus on the threes and what the Mavs were able to force them to do offensively. But if you look defensively, the Mavs scored 62 paint points to the Timberwolves 38. If they're able to try to protect home court moving forward, they're going to have to protect the paint first and foremost.
Not to mention they were 14 of 14 on layups and dunks when Rudy Gobert was off the floor.
Yeah.
Even though they had Cat on the floor, Naz Reid on the floor, that is going to be something they're going to need to take a look at. And Chris Finch, I mean, when he's saying the Western Conference Finals started and maybe these guys didn't get the memo, okay, that's not the film.
They probably have it now.
I was surrounded with some veterans and also had an opportunity to take a bit of a back seat in the leadership role. When you're 24, 23 years old, you feel like you're a leader, but you don't know what it really takes to run an organization or really touch guys, on and off the court, where you give them a lot of confidence and it's just a new chapter in my life. I was a young man, and I think that, people were holding on to my words and things and actions that I did then. But I think now, being 32 years old, I've crossed over that mountain a little bit and been able to figure out that basketball is it's a sport I was meant to play. And in order to do that, I got to make other guys better too. I can't just be out there scoring and worrying about me.
Brian, there's been plenty of ups and downs in the 7 years since Kyrie Irving has played in the conference finals. But driving in when we were talking about this segment, it kept coming back to me. If I would have told you that of the big 3 in Brooklyn, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, who would we be talking about the furthest into the playoffs just a couple of years later in this glowing light? I'm not sure I would have said Kyrie Irving. And now he's back, and he looks better than ever. Brian, what's changed?
Yeah, I'm going to take you back there to 2017. The Cavs won that conference finals, and then LeBron James gave a speech on the eve of the finals talking about how he saw a future with Kyrie Irving, how he saw passing the torch with him, bringing him along, turning the keys over to him. And a few weeks later, Kyrie asked for a trade. Okay? And so just to illustrate that partnership, even when LeBron thought it was really strong, was never close. And so now I look at what he has with Luka. And in a relatively short period of time, what you see about Kyrie is a player who's different in mind, body, and spirit. And the way I see it, he's truly invested in making Luka the best player he can be. This is something that is actually so rare and actually, in a way, so remarkable on the NBA level. When you have a player who's probably headed for the Hall of Fame, who is willing to do whatever he can to help his teammate, whether that means scoring a lot, whether that means passing, whether that means helping him defensively. And listening to Luka talk about Kyrie, I've never heard Luka talk about a teammate the way he's talking about Kyrie, how Kyrie does things that help him all throughout the game, off the court. He talks about these long meals that they have together and their bond. That is really, really meaningful. It's completely the driving force between these two players. And it's just such showing how Kyrie has evolved as a player. It's so hard to ask a player to take a step back when they know they're so good. We're seeing this happen in real time. It's giving the Mavericks a chance, and it's frankly changing the way people look at Kyrie Irving. I would love to know what LeBron James and Kevin Durant, 2 people who were there for these growing pains where they didn't work, they're watching this and seeing this is the Kyrie we always dreamed of.
Wendy, I have a follow-up question for you, because one thing that we have loved when it comes to Kyrie Irving on the floor is that he plays like an alpha. And we've seen instances where that has worked alongside LeBron James. Why do you think on the floor it's working so well for playing alongside Luka?
Number one, Kyrie is in absolutely spectacular physical condition. It wasn't that he was ever out of shape, but he is in such tremendous condition that it enables him to play defense and still be very good at the offensive level. He was on the court at 5 o'clock yesterday. He was the only Maverick out there. He has impressed his teammates about his work ethic in training. So part of it, Chiney, is he's in just a so much better physical place, and that enables him to give more. And his leadership defensively has helped Luka become a better leader defensively. Luka sees how he plays, and he feels like he owes it to Kyrie to play harder on defense. He's never going to win all defensive team, but he has the ability now to make defensive plays. We saw him make some last night, and I do believe that's a Kyrie effect, and I do believe that's an indication of how they're working to help each other.